Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. I bid to Dr. Azlinda binti Abdul Madam Tuana binti Ahmad, Mr. Professor Sulaiman bin Abdullah, and my fellow friends. My name is Fadlin Hanim binti Baharudin, your moderator for today's event, with Sumaya binti Kamaruddin and Nurul Izzah binti Ibrahim as your timekeeper for today's presentation session. Before we start, I would like to read the rules and regulations that need to be complied during the whole event. Number 1, the time allotted for the presentation session is only 15 minutes. 2, the time allotted for the question and answer session is 5 minutes only and starts when the presenter starts responding. Number 3, the panel can only start asking questions when the presentation session has ended. 4, the bell will be rung once in the 10th minute of presentation and twice in the 15th minute of the presentation, marking the end, and the question and answer session will begin. Number 5, question and from the panel of assessors should take precedence over other panels. 6, the moderator reserves the right to mute the microphone of the participant or assessor during the question and answer session if it is found to have exceeded the stipulated time period. Now, let's start the ceremony with the first presenter from Siti Nobatrisha binti Abdul Hakim from Tajuk to present her presentation. Please welcome.
Where should I stand here? So I start. If you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. I bid to panel of assessors, lecturer, and fellow teacher trainees. My name is Siti Nobatrisha binti Ibrahim from Tajuk, and for today I would like to present or to share precisely the overview of my study entitled Primary Tajuk Teachers Challenges in Teaching Speaking in the Pekan District. Okay, let's go to the background of the study. So just like I mentioned just now, the quote by Robert Brown, oral communication or speaking is the essence of human interaction. In fact, speaking is one of the most important skills to master when learning a new language. However, it is a difficult task to master. Unquestionably, necessitates a lot of practice. Next, more emphasis is given towards the teaching of reading and writing due to the nature of the exam-oriented education system. The easiest example I can give you is using the SPM, Teachers Federal Malaysia National Examination. More focus is given to the two skills, which are reading and writing. Less is given to the listening and speaking. Only recently, listening and speaking is incorporated in the national examination. And last but not least, using the CFR expectation to achieve the English language proficiency target according to the level set for each stage of education is given to us, the teachers, for us to view. Okay, next. So this is actually the CFR target or level of English in which pupils need to master by the end of their school and according to the stages of education. So, okay, I want you to put full focus on the preschool level. You need to have at least A1, and then by the time you leave your high school, which is Form 5, you're supposed to have at least B1 or B2 CFR level of English overall. Okay, next. So we come to the statement of problem. Speaking is deemed as the greatest weakness in the English education in Malaysia, as stated by Ministry of Education in the English Education Reform, the roadmap. The standard of English teaching and learning in Malaysia falls short of what is expected from a high-performance education. So obviously that poses a threat to the speaking levels in general. Next, the pupil's general level of English language proficiency is the most pressing cause for concern. Why? Because if the pupils have very low proficiency in English, the teachers themselves will face the difficulties in delivering high-quality teaching and learning content. Next, the actual speaking skills at different stages of education shows the majority of groups is at a level below from what is expected. So bear in mind the table that I showed you just now versus the actual speaking skill of pupils at different stage of education. Next slide. Okay, you can see at the highlighted numbers, most of the pupils starting from year 6 to Form 5, they have only in A1 level. So just now, preschool, you need to have A1 level. But then you look at the Form 5 stage, they have, by this time, at least 11 years worth of education, English education, yet they're still in A1, majority of the group. Okay, so that is the statement of problems for this research. Next. So the purpose of the study is to identify and discover the challenges faced by TESOL teachers in the teaching of spoken English, specifically in the Pekan district. Why? What is the aim of this study? Because Malaysia desires a top-performing education system. So where do we begin? We start with the teacher. English teachers must be given a world-class education. So in order to do that, we need to tackle and find any of the related issues in the teaching and learning process that the teachers face. Okay, next. So these are the research objectives. First, to identify the challenges faced by teachers in teaching speaking skills in the classroom. And second one will be to discover the challenges faced by teachers in speaking fully in English in the classroom. Next, the research questions are, what are the challenges faced by teachers in teaching speaking skills in the classroom? And what are the challenges faced by teachers in speaking fully in English in the classroom? Okay, so let's look at another dimension of the study, shall we? So the significance of the research. How will the answers to this research be beneficial to? So there are three educational related parties that will benefit from this study, which are first the teachers. Teachers are expected to be the frontliners of education. So they are expected to deliver high quality and top-notch teaching and learning experience. So through this study, they are able to improve methods and strategies used in teaching and learning to develop and boost the aspect of speaking. Next will be teacher training. It is as a reference for their future engagement in the classroom. So curriculum, the education system in general is an ever-changing industry. So by the time that teacher trainees leave school, probably there will be new curriculum or new policy language that needs to be implemented in the teaching and learning process. However, one thing that remains the same would be speaking skill is still considered as a difficult task to be taught and to be learned. So through this study, they can be equipped with appropriate knowledge and skills. Last but not least, for educational institutions, it is to provide better support to increase the performance of English teaching in schools. So whether it be through financial support or even improving the facilities that are already in schools. And then next, so these are the related past researchers. So according to Puna Sarapan in 2015, the challenges that teachers face in teaching speaking would be the pupils below satisfactory language proficiency. So proficiency can be referred to as the knowledge or the degree of skill that the pupils show. So obviously, due to the poor proficiency skill, teachers will consider speaking as a difficult task to teach as compared to other areas of language. Actually, in another study made by Spawa and Hassan in 2013, most of the teachers agree that speaking is the most important component in the teaching and learning process. Yet, it is the least emphasized skills that is being put on by the teachers. Next, mixing the English language with native language in the classroom. So English language is a second language for most, yet a third language to some. So the best alternative for teachers would be to mix the English language, basically just translate. So that is what the problems that the teachers themselves face in teaching speaking. Okay, so these are the research design. This study utilizes qualitative approach using case study design, in which I only use semi-structured interviews as the main method to collect the data. So the population of this study consists of TESOL teachers from primary classroom from the Pekan district. And for the sample, I selected the participants using the criterion-based selection, in which I, as a researcher, I established few characteristics in which it is important to the study. And then I find participants that are qualified according to the criteria given, which are number 1, English teacher with TESOL as major, number 2, have at least 5 years of teaching experience. Okay, next. So the instruments used for data collection, obviously, as it is a qualitative research, I myself as a researcher is an instrument for the data collection, as I am the responsible party in the design of study and acquiring first-hand information for the participants. Then I'll use semi-structured one-to-one interviews to administer the questions or to collect data from the participants. So these are the research procedures. So number 1, I sought permission to administer the research from the higher authorities. Afterwards, I myself contacted several schools in the Pekan district. So I actually contacted 4 different schools, 3 urban and 1 suburban schools in Pekan. And then I gave invitations to the potential participants, which leads me to the next research data collection procedures. So I gave out requests for interviews for the selected teachers. I gave them consent letters as well as interview protocols. Then I administered one-to-one interviews in which prompts or leading questions are given to elicit more information from them. So these are the data analysis procedure. As my study utilizes interviews, so the first one is I would transcribe all the interviews that I have using a voice recognition computer software. Then I interpret the data by taking notes of the patterns, explanations that can be found throughout the data. So basically, I have 7 different categories. Then based on the categories, I use semantic analysis method to further discover and investigate the related themes towards this topic. So finally, I went through the data once again to ensure that all the main themes have been carefully classified. So for my study, there are actually 3 different findings, which are first, the pupils' proficiency level, second, pupils' exposure to the language, and third, teachers' roles in the teaching and learning process, which I will further explain in the next slide. So for the pupils' proficiency level, there are actually 3 main areas of challenges which affect the pupils' proficiency. Firstly, the motivation, perception, and the complexity of the language. So when you have no motivation or perception towards the language, obviously you don't want to learn the language. So that will eventually decrease your knowledge of the language. Next, the pupils' exposure to the language. English was never considered as an important language to be used in their household. So external factors like this will definitely affect the pupils' language acquisition, as more times are spent outside of the school instead of in the school. So last but not least will be teachers' roles in the teaching and learning. How teachers approach the pupils in the classroom affects pupils' acceptance of the language. So how teachers utilizes teaching strategies and methods will undeniably affect the pupils' acquisition of the language. Okay, next. So the conclusion for the research question number 1, the challenges teachers face in teaching speaking skills, is mostly influenced by the pupils' proficiency level, pupils' exposure to the language, as well as the teachers' roles in the teaching and learning process. Similarly, the challenges faced by teachers in communicating fully in English are due to the same factors. Okay, so the recommendation or suggestions for these 3 people involved, which are parents, teachers, and policymakers. First, parents as the closest unit to the pupils, you need to give constant encouragement and motivation. Next, the teachers should have high mastery level of the curriculum. We should be instilled with as much knowledge as we can with the curriculum, the current curriculum, so that we are able to produce top-notch teaching and learning content. And then lastly, policymakers need to utilize their force. Instead of asking for teachers to become more creative, maybe they can utilize their force in, giving better policy to the pupils, to be utilized in the school. Okay, last but not least, the implications of this study would be, for parents, it is for them to be more aware of their children's learning development and to give exposure to the context of the language by speaking the language at home, obviously. Then teachers need to ensure that all the individual learning necessities are fulfilled. So basically cater to all your pupils' different needs. Then the communication that happens in the classroom needs to be two-way. The teacher cannot be the sole person who's talking. The pupils themselves need to respond back to the teachers as well. Then the policymakers maybe they can use the study as a method or a means for them to create better English education reform, or to conduct another related study. Because the Ministry of Education, for example, the policymakers, they are able to have more resources in order to conduct a more in-depth and research. Yes, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. The ceremony will now continue with a question and answer session. Please welcome Dr. Azlinda and Madam Suhana to ask any questions to the presenter.
Thank you. Congratulations, Patricia. We have seen a lot of experience carrying out the research. Well, it's interesting in the sense that you're studying on the natural features in the division of studies. So I don't know how you get cooperation from these teachers. Maybe you know them. So it's quite difficult to get cooperation from the teachers. And this is during the pandemic, right? So was it done face to face or online?
I approached from teachers, and then only 6 of them who agree, and some of them I administered online, and some of them I administered face-to-face interview. So mostly I utilize Google Meet as the main platform for my discussion.
To ask the question, how many participants was the speaker? All right. I'm interested to know the instrument that you use. I don't know. I thought if I would advise you use simulation, the more, like data, the more information that you get. But still, you stated a researcher and you do. You have to be researcher. What do you mean when you say researcher?
Or basically, I'm the one who administer and maneuver the whole interview. So basically, my main method is interview. But I feel like in a qualitative research, as a researcher, you should also be the tool for the data collection, because you know more about the data. So during the administration of the interviews, I, as the researcher, as well as the tool for the data collection, I was able to elicit more information by asking more, some attractions and also structured questions at the same time.
I understand. And that's fine, because you are observing and interpreting just when you yourself is literally sometimes you are validity reality of research question unless you also interpret. So this is one. I would also like to know about the interview. So how do you develop the questions? I mean, do you develop what they're containing?
Yes, I adapted from another similar research done by Muhammad Kauser in 2018, I think. But the question is more towards the pupils. Muhammad Kauser interviewed the pupils to ask them what are their challenges in learning. So I adapted my questions from that, and from that particular research.
Right. So I think one final question for me, sorry, I couldn't get it. Because I feel that your research is that clarify the things and to need more attention. Yeah? And looking at your data findings, so there's a lot of things you really embark to study, speaking, which is like you said, it's a challenging skill for teachers. So I think you have experienced that in school. It's very challenging. The students do not acquire enough vocabulary for them to respond to. So I think the data that you get actually depends on the questions that you're supposed to be teaching. If you also carry out, I don't know, suggestions, if you are to act, look at how to improve your research for the future. So I think you can get deeper into this. So one is when you ask teachers, of course, I don't know how honest they are in responding to your questions. So you're actually finding them by knowing all about this. So how honest they are in responding to you, so your data is limited to that, the data that you get from them. Yes, of course, people's proficiency, people's exposure,
Yes, okay. This is regarding the testing. You mentioned there that one of the criteria is at least 5 years experience in Bilik. Why did you set such a criteria?
I think if you are already in the fifth year of the school, you are able to build a solid and good foundation of the teaching and learning industry, the teaching and learning field sector. So that's why I set a specific time frame, 5 years, because for me, just like 5 years of being in ITG, I learned a lot, and from the start to the finish, I was able to, improve myself as a teacher. So once you are a teacher, the teacher, that 5-year period will also apply to you, just like how it applies to you during my 5 years.
You mentioned that you are
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Now please welcome the next presenter, Nur Anissa Ibrahim. Thank you. Now please welcome the next presenter, Nur Anissa Ibrahim into Johar from Central 4 to present her presentation.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I bid to both of my honorable panels, my assessors, and all of my fellow friends here. So today I will be presenting my research entitled The Use of RevPro to Promote Mastery in Reflective Pronouns Among Year 5 Students. But before that, let me introduce myself first. My name is Nur Anissa Ibrahim binti Johar, and I am from Unit PISMP Tajuk 4, Semester 8, June 2018 intake. Okay, so my research supervisor is Dr. Faizah binti Jaafar, and both of my panels for today are Dr. Azinda binti Abdul Aziz and Madam Suhana binti Ahmad. Okay, so let's move on to the first content of the presentation for today, which is the background of study. PEFR was introduced publicly to the Malaysian education system in 2013. Before this, our education system implemented KSSR. The difference between KSSR and PFR is in the terms of teaching Rema and implementing it. In PFR, there is no teaching and learning of Rema in the syllabus. Therefore, the DSKP stated that the aspects of Rema need to be infused with the teaching of other language skills. And due to the pandemic, teachers need to teach all of their classes online, which leads to the teachers need to be more creative in creating exciting online learning lessons. Thus, it leads to the teachers to have more opportunity to fulfill the needs of the students because each student has different level of comprehension, understanding, and also learning style. Moving on to the statement of problem, as we all know, and as an adult, learning grammar is hard even for us. So the primary school students feel frustrated in learning grammar because it is difficult for them to understand. As a result, the students, they were reluctant to learn and avoid developing grammar. Their failure in understanding grammar makes it hard for them to construct proper sentences and also to complete their school exercises. I noticed this issue because some of the students did not know what is reflexive pronouns, while others are confused on the correct use of the reflexive pronouns. For instance, some of the students, they were confused on the use of themselves, ourselves, itself, and yourself. Next, the purpose of study. So the purpose of this study is to observe whether the use of intervention, RefPro, can help to promote students' mastery in using reflexive pronouns correctly. Moving on to the research objectives, there are two research objectives. The first one is to improve the use of reflexive pronouns using RefPro among Year 5 students, and the second research objective is to draw students' attention in learning reflexive pronouns using RefPro. So moving on to the research questions, there are also two research questions. The first one is, does the use of RefPro help to improve the students' mastery in using reflexive pronouns? And the second question is, does the use of RefPro attract students' interest in learning reflexive pronouns correctly? Next is the significance of the research. So there are three significance of this research. The first one is, I wanted to prove that by using the intervention, it can help to promote students' mastery in using reflexive pronouns correctly. This is because in the creating process of the intervention, I tried my best to address to the different needs of the students because as we all know, everyone has different learning styles. Secondly, I wanted to inspire teachers to implement the use of ICT in teaching and learning sessions. Incorporating ICT is very important in teaching this generation because this generation, they are exposed to the use of ICT at an early age. Therefore, we as teachers need to keep up with the trend of the generation. And lastly, I wanted to inspire the teachers to teach their students in a fun and stress-free environment. Because in my opinion, I agree that the students are able to comprehend knowledge, especially grammar, easily when they feel comfortable in the learning environment. So the past researchers, there are 4 past research that I use as a reference in conducting this research. The first one is the use of technology in Malaysian high schools for language teaching and learning by Shirin and YKGR. However, in the past research, it is stated that due to the lack of experience by the teachers, most of the time, the teachers fail to execute their lesson plan when they try to incorporate the ICT. By Ria Antika, the use of songs in vocabulary learning for young learners are effective. By Ika Devi, animation videos help students to improve their vocabulary knowledge. And by Khalifa Al-Shaya, the use of digital games in language learning provides more benefits than drawbacks. The 3 past research down there is closely related to the one of the theories that I implement in my research, which is the multiple intelligence theory. That stated different learners have different needs and learning styles. Next is my research design. So the research design that I use is Action Research by chemist and Max Taget's 1988 model. As you can see in the model, there are 4 stages: plan, action, observe, and reflect. In the planning stage, I plan my steps to conduct the research by identifying the problems of the students regarding reflexive pronouns, and then I invented and adapted an intervention to fulfill their needs. And lastly, I conducted pre-tests before showing the intervention to the research participants. Next is the implementation of action. So I implement the intervention through Google Meet online because of the pandemic situation. Next, observe stage. So during the intervention session, I made observation on the research participants by using observation checklist, and I also interview them by using semi-structured interview. And lastly, reflect based on the data collected. I analyze the data, and I concluded the strength and weakness of the intervention. So this is the population example. I chose 3 research participants, all of them from the same class and from the same school, and those are not their real names, and I blurred out their face. Okay, so the criteria for selecting the research participants, there are 2 criteria that I prioritize. The first one is they must have very low score during preliminary tests, and the other one is they must have good attitude. And next, this is my intervention. So as you can see, my intervention is made as a website, and the theme is, I was inspired by one of my students. She likes anime very much, so I made aesthetic anime note-taking theme for my website so that it can attract them. In my intervention, there are 2 main parts. The first part is learning session, and the second part is the simple answering question session. So as you can see on the third picture, that is the learning session, the first main part. I provided the research participants with 3 types of notes, which are songs, animated video, and also interactive notes. For the second part, I provided 3 levels of difficulty in game-based exercises. So the instruments used for data collection, I use 3 types of instruments. The first one is the keyword analysis, which is the pre-test and post-test, but in the form of Google Form. Secondly, observation checklist. I made it for 2 stages for both main parts. And lastly is interview, which is semi-structured interview. Moving on to the research procedure. So after I have selected the 3 research participants, I first conducted pre-test, and then after that I explained to the research participants about my intervention, and then I let them to explore the intervention by themselves. So basically what they did was they choose the notes that they like, and then they proceed to answer the simple questions based on games. And then after they have done using the intervention, I conducted post-test so that I can compare the scores that they get from the pre-test. And during the intervention session, I made observation using observation checklist. And lastly, I interviewed the research participants. So the data collection procedures, it started with preliminary tests with all of the students from class proactive. And then after I chose 3 research participants, I conducted pre-test before the intervention session. After intervention session, I conducted post-test, and then observation checklist during the intervention session, and lastly the interview with the research participants. For the analysis procedure, so I use document analysis, which I use to compare the scores from the pre-test and post-test, and then I see the increment of marks. Observation, as I stated earlier, I observe using observation checklist to see their attitude, their body language, and their facial expression. Then interview, I conducted semi-structured interview with all research participants individually. And then based on all of the data collected, I triangulate it to determine the validity and reliability of the data analysis. So the data findings are to answer both of the research questions. So the data finding for Q1 is the outcomes and the results produced during the data collection prove that the research and the intervention is effective. For research question 2, the research, I believe that the intervention repro attracted students' interest in learning reflective pronouns correctly. So the proof are here. Based on document analysis, as you can see, pre-test, all of the students achieved the scores below average. For the post-test, they achieved scores higher than the average. As for observation checklist, so this is what I got from the observation checklist. It helps the research participants to grasp the rules and correct usage of possessive pronouns because they show interest towards the components in the intervention. And another one is the intervention promotes interest in their learning because they were active during the intervention process. As an evidence, one of the research participants throughout the whole intervention session, she keeps on bobbing her head in excitement while trying to explore the game-based exercises. So this is data findings based on interview. I laid out all of the questions and the answers from research participants and also the teams, as you can see. Question 1, question 2, next. Question 3, question 4, question 5, question 6, and the last question, question 7. Okay, so the discussion. So the findings of the research are supported by multiple intelligence theory and cognitive theory. As you know, multiple intelligence theory stated that different learners have different needs in their learning style. As for cognitive theory, it investigates how knowledge was constructed and influenced by the learner's previous experience. This research focuses on creating a welcoming environment for the students to learn so that it will not impede their learning process. Conclusion. So to conclude, the research was successful. The intervention managed to help students in learning reflexive pronouns, and the research findings answer both of the research questions. And these are the recommendations or suggestions that I made for the future research. Firstly, intervention can be conducted for it to be used in a broader context. In this, the context that I meant was for other grammar items that is closely related to reflexive pronouns. Secondly, emphasize on the use of ICT in teaching and learning sessions because it gives benefits to both teachers and students. Make changes in the elements of the intervention to make it more engaging because why not? And then the intervention could be applied to other learning languages such as Melayu, Mandarin language, and Tamil language. Because as I said earlier, my intervention is adaptable, so it's easy to make changes. And lastly, integration. Firstly, integration of technology. It is important that the integration of technology helps to boost and motivate the students in learning because of the interactive method. The use of animated video and song. So during the intervention learning session, the research participants enjoyed very much watching the video and listening to the song. Therefore, teachers should be more skillful in ICT and avoid using traditional talk and talk method for drawing lesson plan. And lastly, the use of games. This intervention emphasizes on the use of games because it is proven that it helps to motivate and boost the learners, the research participants to learn, wills to learn. And that is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. The ceremony will now continue with a question and answer session. Please welcome Dr. Linda and Madam Sana to ask any questions to the presenter.
Okay, congratulations to Anissa with us. And you from Tajuk?
That's all.
All right. There's a few things. One is a suggestion for you to improve on the research objective because this is attention. So usually the research of attention, unlike your right correct? So you can improve by to find out whether the
and I really love the idea of gamification because I myself I can play games until now. So I think that what makes my intelligence stand out from others.
They can learn what it is.
Yes.
You have to, if you're doing intervention, please know how to tell your intervention if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to tell your intervention.
Oh, okay.
All right. So explain why you factor, what makes it different from another food. All right. So I think that's one for me. Another one is please improve on your pronunciation grammar. I thought you were something
Grammar.
your grandmother. It's on grammar.
Oh, grammar.
All right, that's all for me. Yeah, I have one question regarding the interview. You mentioned that you carry out the interview and it was done for the students, right? So how did you manage that? Because I think it's quite an interview for the
Okay, so I will finish the interview. I already said a few questions that I want to ask. However, if you have the question that I asked, I elaborated to be more equivalent.
was it carried out online?
And yes, we will carry out online due to the pandemic. So I cannot know where to take the register and I cannot go to the house to do that. So I thought by using Zoom, the different medium for me to do that.
Thank you. Now please welcome the next presenter, Nur Arisha binti Mansur from Tajuk.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon to our panel evaluators, lecturer and my fellow friends. My name is Nur Arisha binti Mansur. I am from Tajuk 3 and today I'll present my research. The title is Using Arrays to Improve the Use of Articles Among Year 4 Pupils. According to Miller in 2015, three things will often indicate that a person is working on a second language, which are the choice of tenses, the subject and verb agreements, and the use of articles. Articles rank among the 5 most common words in the English language. Therefore, the errors in this area are highly noticeable. In Malaysian primary school context, learning of articles is included in Year 4 English syllabus. Next, the important aspect of language learning is the mastery of skills along with the acquisition of knowledge, and this can be achieved through board games. According to Tengku Nazatul Shima and Rahmah in 2013, there are various benefits of using board games in teaching and learning, including eliminating fear in learning, help to develop self-confidence, and enables the pupils to use new words and structures subconsciously. In this study, the trend or concept of the board game that I used has shifted from the traditional concept to the digital board game set. So Aries is a digital board game set. Based on my teaching and learning experience with Year 4 and Year 5 pupils during my practicum, the responses from the pupils when they were learning Unit 5 indicated that they were having problems in differentiating the use of articles correctly in written and spoken language. Apart from that, they also express full interest and focus while learning, especially when the classes were in the afternoon. They were not committed to finish their task and were easily distracted by their surroundings. In addition, I also recognized some pupils who were having low self-confidence. So through this study, I used interactive digital material, integrated information communication technology, ICT, and I enhanced the activities in small groups. So this study aims to improve the use of articles among Year 4 Ibn Sina pupils using arrays and to find out how arrays improve the use of articles among Year 4 Ibn Sina pupils. The research questions for this study include: does arrays help improve the use of articles among Year 4 Ibn Sina pupils? And how does arrays improve the use of articles among Year 4 Ibn Sina pupils? So this research is significant for teachers to provide suitable teaching and learning materials to support their strategies in teaching grammar and especially articles to the pupils through a language game. Mia, Emily, Emma, Marini, and Chia in 2013 stated that studies in this area, regarding articles, are still lacking and should be considered as one of the neglected aspects in the educational field in Malaysia. So these researchers suggested for teachers to focus more on this grammar aspect because it is also one of the important aspects for young ESL learners. Second one, majority of participants had positive attitudes about the board games and the benefits that the board games bring to grammar retention. This was based on the study by Fong and Nguyen in 2018. And the third one, based on Anisha and Tan's research in 2013, the pupils and the teachers who accompanied the pupils playing language board games presented positive response. So these past researchers influenced me to conduct this research. This section research was based on Chemist and McTaggart section research model. So according to this model, there are 4 steps, starting from plan, action, observe, and reflect. And the reflect then led to the reverse plan, action, observe, and reflect for the second cycle. The population for this study was 18 pupils from Year 4 Ibn Sina in Sekolah Kebangsaan Pokok Senang Kedah. So Year 4 Ibn Sina is the weakest class in terms of academic performance, including for English subject. So I chose the participants after considering their diagnostic test results, their classroom assessment results, and also interviews with classroom teacher and also the subject teacher. And from that, I chose 3 participants who are 2 boys and a girl. Alright, this is my intervention. Arrays, it is a digital board game. First of all, there are 5 features. The first one is the small dice, and then 5 player tokens, 45 styles in total, and 2 card decks here. And they are also answer checked. So I will show my intervention through a video. Right, so in this intervention, I included pictures, videos, songs, and also puzzles for the pupils to do according to their turn. So the task consists of symbols. So each symbol has a mark, so they just have to click and do the tasks and activities that I have prepared for them. Alright, so these are my research procedures. I started this research starting from 10 of October 2021. This was after my phase 2 practicum. So I started by reflecting past teaching and learning experiences, identifying issues of concern, and then I determined the research focus, research objective, and research questions that are very important for the study. And I then determined the suitable research design and design the intervention to be used in the study. So on 10th of January 2022, I presented my research progress to my supervisor, Dr. Zainab, and based on her feedback, I then started to plan an action plan for the intervention implementation process. So this is the research intervention implementation process, starting from 23rd of January until 9th of February. So I contacted and informed the headmaster and the mentor using permission letter prepared by IPZ and conducted preliminary investigation, benefit test, interview, and also referred to their PPT results. So I conducted 2 cycles. The first cycle was on 26th of January, and then a week later, I conducted the second cycle. And finally, I spent a month to analyze the data collected using thematic analysis and determine the findings for the study. For data collection procedures, first of all, I have 3 different data collection methods: document analysis, observation, and interviews. So I conducted 2 cycles, and each cycle consists of 3 sessions. For the first session, 10 minutes were for the participants to complete the first worksheet. And then they spent an hour to play, erase, and do the activities. And then for the final 20 minutes, the participants will complete the second worksheet of similar questions from the first one. And then for me to conduct semi-structured interviews with each participant. As for data analysis procedures, the first one for document analysis, for the 15 questions in the worksheet, I categorized each question into 4 different items that hinted at their understanding of articles. And then I jotted down the items and recognized the participants' understanding. As for the observation, the verbal and non-verbal responses from the participants were classified into 5 themes, and I then filled in the observation checklist and recognized the features of the intervention and instructions that could be modified for the improvement. So as for the interview, first of all, I transcribed the audio recordings into written language, and then I translated the interview because I conducted the interview in Malay for the pupils for the convenience of the pupils. And then I carried out first and second reading. For the first reading, I only read the translation of the interview, and then for the second one, I read and highlighted the responses that show the theme that I analyzed. Right, so data findings. This table shows the results for the first cycle. As you can see, during the first cycles, all participants were not able to acquire all the items that I analyzed. Next, after the second cycle, the participants were finally able to acquire all the items, differentiating vowel and consonant sounds, and use definite and indefinite articles correctly. And then table 3 shows the themes that I analyzed from the observation: facial expression, body language, attitude, participation, and attention. So by the end of cycle 2, all pupils were able to show positive responses. And then table 4 is for the interview that I conducted. Finally, all participants could show their interest, and even though they found that my intervention was challenging, they still could do all the stuff correctly. And then improvisation, I improvised from the first cycle. I improvised my intervention, and then from there, the people started to show more positive responses. Right, so the discussion. The participants' use of articles was enhanced through the activities and tasks in areas, the interactive learning strategy centralized, and the gamification approach. The intervention encouraged meaningful and effective communication among the participants, allowing them to strengthen their knowledge and practice the use of articles. And then the third one, the material use, which is arrays during the teaching and learning process could gain pupils' attention and stimulate their interest to maximize the pupils' learning. And lastly, arrays was enjoyable and kept them alert to apply the rules of the article. So in conclusion, the participants were able to improve their use of articles using arrays. The intervention managed to show the pupils the exciting and fun ways to learn articles, and the positive impacts were discovered from the pupils through arrays. Alright, recommendations. Firstly, I would recommend for teachers to widen and adapt the intervention to other topics or subjects. So the intervention is not limited to grammar topic articles and also English. It can be used for other topics and subjects. And then the second one, the intervention can be played in groups. So instead of having the pupils to play individually, future researchers can also have their participants to play in small groups and observe the impact of collaborative learning using digital materials. And then improvisation can also be made by adding more multimedia to enhance the pupils' understanding. And lastly, implications. First one, teachers become more engaged and passionate about improving pupils' learning. So based on the problems that teachers identify, they can do something to solve the problems among the pupils. And then this research also encouraged critical reflections on teaching practices and teaching experience. Continuous reflection are very important for teachers to evaluate the effectiveness of the strategies and practices. And last but not least, developing ideas in enhancing teaching practices to help young ESL learners. So young ESL learners, they need much support, motivation, chances, and opportunities for them to use the language. So through this study, this can be achieved. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. The ceremony will now continue with a question and answer session. Please welcome Dr. Alminda and Madam Sana to ask any questions to the presenter.
Okay. Congratulations, Anisha. I'm really very good to study. And I think your methodology is well explained. It's very good, very clear, and that contributes to the findings that you get. We have 3 participants together. Yes. All right. So I am also interested in the management that you forward in erase. So how many people can say erase at one time?
In arrays, I prepared 5 study topics. So 5 people can say, or 5 groups of a few people. However, from the Google Sheet, so I created it using Google Sheet, the number of topics can still be added. I can add more study topics if the lesson involves many people.
How long does it take for the participants, the 3 participants to complete?
An hour. I plan for overall session 1 hour and 30 minutes. So 1 hour was only for them to explore it.
This is good, yeah. So other teachers can also use your all right. My final question is: what was the biggest challenge for you in the experience of conducting your research?
So I taught these people during ability practice, but I didn't collect the data during that time. So I took some time to prepare, and then they experienced remote learning, online learning. So I had to wait until the school reopened and all the people can go to school for me to conduct this research. So I have to ensure that the 3 participants were available, they could participate. Because I chose the participants a week before, so I need to ensure that the next week they should come to school for them to participate. But overall, the school helped me a lot.
Congratulations on the invention of the intervention. I think that is really interesting. I have a few questions in order for you to understand the intervention itself. What platform do you use to create that?
I found this idea from a website. So the website reflects a Google Sheet template. So I just copy the template to my Google Drive, and then I could edit I could add pictures, and everything. So everyone else can use it. Just go to the website, and then just make a copy.
In the beginning, I thought you were using a slide mania.
No, slide mania for the presentation.
So, you did not allow the students to use this intervention online, but you went to school.
I went to so for each student, they will come to the front and use and move the benches by themselves. But I can decide it after and before. Thank you. Before you leave, we want to give some.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, your photographer coming.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, please welcome the next presenter, Muhammad Fauzan National bin Muhammad Saldi from Tajuk 1 to present his presentation. Please welcome.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh and a pleasant afternoon. I bid to my panel. Okay, my name is Muhammad Fauzan National bin Muhammad Saldi. I'm from PISMP Tajuk 1 June 2018 intake, and my supervisor is Dr. Faiza binti Jaafar. My research title is the use of DBO-DB adventure in enhancing reading comprehension among Year 5 pupils in SK from 1. Okay, this is the background study. Reading comprehension is one of the important elements of reading skills. It can be defined as a process where readers construct meaning as they interact with the text. The role of reading comprehension is to assist pupils and develop their knowledge, skills, and experiences in order to become competent readers. Why I choose reading comprehension? Because I detected pupils cannot comprehend simple text, lack of interest, and participation in reading English material. So I plan to conduct an intervention to overcome pupils' problems in reading comprehension, which is EBODB adventure. It's my intervention. In order to improve pupils' reading comprehension level through the use of the intervention. Okay, this is my statement of problem. First, I see pupils seem demotivated every time a reading activity was conducted and tend to take a long pause to read the text. Pupils tend to lose interest in reading lengthy narrative text, and their level of pupils' proficiency in reading comprehension is weak because most of the year 5 pupils find it difficult to understand what is being read. Okay, my purpose of study is to find out the impact of using interactive storybook intervention entitled EBODB Adventure on year 5 pupils to help improve their reading comprehension skills. And my second purpose is to prove that the usage of ICT such as interactive storybook can encourage pupils' participation in reading and give benefit to them. Okay, this is my research objective and questions. First, there are 2 research objectives. First, to improve pupils' reading comprehension through the use of EBODB Adventure. Second, to encourage pupils' participation in reading. And the research question is, does the use of EBODB Adventure help pupils in improving reading comprehension? And how does the implementation of EBODB Adventure can encourage pupils in reading? Okay, this is the significance of the research. First, to raise awareness of the importance to teach reading using technology in class. And the second is to highlight the benefits of using interactive storybooks for education. According to Regio, technology in the classroom is no longer played just for fun, but instead seen as a learning tool that can engage pupils' interest and immerse them in subject knowledge. Okay, there are 3 related past researches that I use in my research. First, benefits and pitfalls of multimedia and interactive features in technology enhanced storybook by Ted Swart and Pass 2015. In this research, technology enhanced book can improve children's story comprehension and word learning from story because of the closer matching between non-verbal and verbal information. And the second past research is improving students' reading skills through interactive multimedia by Rara Diska Nurhana 2014. This session research states that the use of interactive multimedia really gives a positive impact on improving reading comprehension skills. And the last one, the effect technology has on student comprehension and motivation by Paul Roland 2016. This research states that the implementation of technology in education is really important for 21st century learning, as the use of technology will motivate pupils to learn better and improve their reading comprehension skills. Okay, my research design is action research, which the research design for this action research will be using a qualitative approach in order to do data collection, analysis, and report writing. Therefore, the data for this research will be analyzed and presented in a qualitative approach. I'm using Chemist McTaggart action research for research design. And my population and sample. My population is year 5 tekun from SK Perempuan Padarangan, Perak. And there are I have 3 research participants with all boys. First, Shauki, second, Rafi, and Rehan. They have similar characteristics according to through their English proficiency level, academic performance, and low comprehension skills. Okay, instrument I use for data collection is first document analysis, pre-intervention test, and post-intervention test, multiple choice questions, quiz, match the pictures game, and the second is observation, and the third one is interview, semi-structured interview. Okay, this is my research procedure. There are 10 steps. First, I identify an issue or problem faced by pupils, and then I review the literature, then developing the research objective and questions, clarify the problem by doing preliminary investigation, and then I choosing the target population and sample, and I developing the plan for the study, which is intervention, and collect data pre, post-test, observation, interview, then analyze the data, writing the report, and presenting the report. Okay, this is my data collection. I have 2 cycles for my data collection. First cycle, I will do pre-intervention test. Next, for 10 minutes. This intervention is suited to 1 hour reading class. So my pre-intervention test will allocate 10 minutes. Pupils will introduce the intervention and use it by their own 20 minutes. Pupils answer the quizzes in the intervention 20 minutes. And the last one, post-intervention test, observation, and semi-structured interview were collected in 10 minutes. All of these cycles, cycle 1 and 2, there is no difference, but the intervention I have amended. I amend the intervention. Okay, data analysis procedures. First, document analysis. I analyze and compare the result obtained by the pupils in the pre-intervention and post-intervention test. I interpreted pupils' scores in the multiple choice question quiz and matched the pictures game. I have related the score and improvement by the pupils. Next is observation. I observe the pupils' participation, interest, attitude, and enjoyment, and effort throughout all cycles. I use observation checklist and the pupils' behavior protocol as the guideline. And last one is a semi-structured interview was done at the end of every cycle. 3 teams were analyzed from the interview, which are interest, challenge, and improvisation. All of this data analysis will undergo triangulation to strengthen the validity and credibility of this data. Okay, this is data finding for pre-intervention and post-intervention test results. You can see the improvement pre-intervention and post-intervention in cycle 1, which all of the participants make an improvement. So all participants were able to achieve the target score in cycle 2, which I set the target. Pupils need to achieve 5/10 above to make them improve their reading comprehension skill. Next. Okay, this is data findings for observation. All the participant interest, attitude, enjoyment, effort are the themes analyzed from the observation checklist. And all participants were able to show positive behavior improvement, attracted and engaged in the learning session in cycle 2. And lastly, interview, data findings for interview. There are 3 themes were analyzed, which are challenge, interest, and improvisation. All participants were able to comprehend the text and tell the story using their own words during the interview session in cycle 2. Okay, the discussion, we refer to research question. Does the use of DIBO adventure help pupils in improving reading comprehension? How does the implementation of DB adventure can encourage pupils in reading? So the answer research findings here is yes. The DIBO DB adventure does help the pupils, the year 5 pupils in improving reading comprehension skills and encourage pupils participation in reading. Based on pre and post-test observation and semi-structured interviews, the positive outcome was contributed by all the 3 research participants in terms of attitude and behavior. The introduction of a fun learning and multimedia-based intervention proved to be positive and effective in the development of pupils' reading comprehension. Okay, conclusion. The implementation of DIB adventure intervention during English classes does help in improving pupils' reading comprehension skills. Implementing technology offers good advantages to pupils in terms of educational purposes. And lastly, the research objectives are achieved. Recommendation. I recommend that teachers should implement interactive storybook in the teaching and learning session. Teachers should vary the teaching methods, like using technology nowadays, and increase the usage of ICT for educational purposes. And Further research should be done on the effect of interactive storybook on other skills like writing, listening, and speaking. And the implication is pupils improve their reading skills through the implementation of interactive storybook. Teachers implement interactive storybooks as an effective method of teaching reading in the classroom. And lastly, the implementation of the intervention increase the pupils' interest and motivation towards reading. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Ceremony will now continue with a question and answer session. Please welcome Madam Suhana and Mr. Sham to ask any questions to the presenter.
First of all, congratulations on what you've done, that you are already at good stage. You have completed your research and action report, right? So, actually, I'm trying to understand the intervention itself in the first place. I understand that it is an interactive storybook, right?
Yes, actually, my slide is there are missing slide actually. I put the intervention. Intervention is the DP adventure is an interactive storybook because it's of provided audio, animation, pictures in the interactive storybook, which helps people to understand the story better.
Could you please explain a bit more on how you actually conduct the intervention?
Okay, the intervention start from the pre-test first. Pre-intervention test. I give the test, which is the text of the DP adventure in the Google form. So the student needs to read the before they try the intervention, they need to do the pre-intervention test first. They read by their own first and try to answer it. And then after the answer and I record the mark, they will start with the intervention. Intervention start. I will introduce the intervention to the student. Like there are button instructions in the interactive storybook. So
On the laptop.
yes. So once I already explain all the instructions and then they do it by their own. They read because in the intervention in the interactive storybook, all of the words and all of the pictures, when you press the word or to find the meaning, it will link to its meaning. So I put the intervention like that. And for the pictures, if the pupils click the pictures, then the pictures will say, "I'm Mr. Elephant," like that. So if the pupils, for example, if this is the text, this is the whole text that, like on a sunny day, Dibu and DB go to. There are buttons here, so pupils can press this button. This button will read all the text here. So people can, I would call that
This is like a text reader, right?
text reader, yes. Yes.
So basically, you read it on the laptop and you carry out the inspection.
Yes.
So I noticed you have two titles,
Yeah.
and you mentioned that you not after doing different things in both titles, and that you have made some amendments.
Yeah.
What are those amendments?
Amendments like first, I observed in the first cycle that when I use all black font for the text, I can see people cannot recognize. Oh, where is the main character? Where is? So I changed the main character with orange font. For example, like Dibo, DB in orange font, Mr. Elephant green, and Mr. Lion in green. So they can know the character in the story. Then I made amendment like when they read, they don't have to, like if they press word on a sunny day, they don't need to, what we call, if they don't know the meaning of the sunny, like first I say I link the word with its meaning. So when they press the meaning, the word, it will come up with the sound word, like sunny, like that. I don't have any.
I'm sorry, but I don't present any of like speakers. Like, sorry. Testify. Thank you. Now, please welcome the next presenter, Kaisara Shafika binti Azhar from Level 5 to present her presentation. Please welcome. Thank you, moderator and timekeeper. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon I bid to respected panel evaluators as well as my fellow friends. My name is Kaisara Shafika binti Azhar. I'm from Level 5, PISMP, June 2018. And I'm under the supervision of Dr. Zainab binti Abdul Rahman. So today I'm going to present my thesis entitled Using Convocate to Improve the Use of Subject-Verb Agreement in Simple Present Sentences Among Year 5 Zamrud Pupils. Next. So without further ado, let's start with the context of this research, which is the research background. So for this research, it is based on my past teaching experience from my practicum cases. We went through 2 phases of practicum, and what I found, there's a few issues regarding the teaching and learning of teaching English as a second language in primary schools. The first one is the pupils' demotivation during English language classes, where they always feel demotivated or look disinterested when I conduct any activity in the English language classroom because they don't feel confident with their English, and they don't really feel that English is necessary in their life. The next issue is the pupils' lack of grammatical awareness in terms of, because when I was going through my 2 phases of practicum, I taught year 4 and year 5, and what I've observed is that most of the pupils have lack of basic grammar understanding. For example, for simple present sentences, the lack of understanding of the nouns and verbs, and these are the problems that make me want to do this research. And then the third one is the pupils' inability to use the subject-verb agreement correctly. So this is particularly in simple present sentences, because simple present sentences is already taught in year 3, but my students were in year 5 and they still haven't get to master or use this element correctly. So next is the problem statement. So the pupils were unable to identify the correct verb form of the subject in simple present sentences. As we all know, the uniformity between the verb and the subject is called subject-verb agreement. So in simple present sentence, I found that the pupils have a problem with singular verb ending with s, es, or ies. And then they always have a problem with plural subjects contain the conjunction and. Next is the research objective. My research objective is to improve year 5 Zamrud pupils' use of subject-verb agreement in simple present sentences through convocate. And then my research question is, how does the convocate help to improve year 5 Zamrud pupils' use of subject-verb agreement effectively? Now, moving on to the past researches that I have related to this research. The first one is from Halifah and Muhammad Khairul 2020. Where they identify the errors in writing among pupils, and they found out that pupils face difficulties in applying the correct tense in English writing. A few elements that they also identify was punctuation, spelling, and tenses.
And the most frequent error that the pupils have done is in tenses, especially simple present tense. The next one is this Woyo 2016, where the common error in simple present tense is misinformation, which is the misuse of the inflection as in the verb. And then in the research done by Shanu, Priya, Melanie, and Melo, they tried to identify the effectiveness of digital comics. So digital comics were found to be effective as an innovative teaching material, and that provides the pupils with a hands-on learning experience through the integration of ICT, information communication and technology. Next and the last one is the research done by Ting Ying and Melo, 2018. They found that the board game is an effective tool to provide an enjoyable learning environment for the pupils through a meaningful context in which the pupils won't go through will learn in a non-threatening environment in the class. So based on these past researches, I have created an intervention called Combo Kit, which is a combination between a comic and board game. Next. So for this research, I have this is a qualitative research, which is an action research. So in the model of chemist McTaggart's model of action research, 1988, there's 4 phases in each cycle, which is planning, acting, observing, and reflecting. And for my intervention, I have done it in 2 cycles, in which at the last phase in reflecting, in cycle 1, I have found a few things that need to be amended in my innovation or my intervention. Therefore, in the second cycle, I have revised the plan, and then I have go through another cycle of intervention. Then I observe the pupil, collect the data, and then I reflect on my intervention. Next. So these are my research participants. My research participants consist of 3 boys from the class Year 5 Rambut in Sekolah Kebangsaan Salo, Kota Baru. And these pupils were selected based on their diagnostic worksheet and my interview with their teachers, as well as my observation throughout the class. I found that the pupils portrayed lack of understanding on the rules of subject-verb agreement, in which it is evident in their pupils' worksheet, as they achieved the lowest marks among their friends with 2/15 scores. And my research participants are Adi, Ifat, and Hafiz. These are the pseudonyms that I've chosen for this research. Next is my intervention specification. As aforementioned, my intervention is called Combo Kit. The combo stands for comic, and the bow stands for board game. So continuing with the next slide. So the first specification is the combo comic. It consists of 3 sets. The first set introduces singular subjects. The second set introduces plural subjects, and the third set introduces subject consisting I and U. So in there are 3 sets with 3 pages respectively in each set. First page explores the rules for each category, and they have 2 paneled comic strips there. And then the second page explores the example of the correct use of subject-verb agreement. And then the last one is the third page, which is a mini activity to check the pupils' understanding, where the pupils discuss among themselves which is the correct answer, and they choose the correct answer. So this enhances the pupils' participation, as well as introduces the pupils to student-centered learning. Next is the combo board game. The combo board game consists of 2 elements. The first one is the combo board. As you can see, the combo board has 25 spaces, consists of 4 different question planets. This is what we call the question planet. Yellow one, orange one, the gray one, and the blue ones show different level of questions for the pupils. And then the alien spaces are for the punishment, or the penalty for the pupils. When they arrive there, they have to go back 1 space. So if they were unable to answer the question as well, the punishment is also that the pupil cannot move until they can get to answer the questions correctly. Next is the example of questions. There are approximately 20 questions that I've prepared, 20 to 25 questions that I've prepared for the pupils. And when they click on the question planet, it will redirect them to the questions and they have to choose their correct answer. So these are all pupil-centered learning for the pupils to show their understanding of subject verb agreement. Next is the intervention procedure. I have divided this into 4 stages. The first one is the pre-intervention, where the teacher distributed the pre-intervention worksheet to the pupils. It consists of 10 questions, and the pupils have to complete the worksheets within 10 minutes. And then in the second stage is the presentation stage, because the intervention that I've designed reflects on the stages in the teaching and learning process. So the combo comic reflects on the presentation stage. So I introduced the combo comic to the pupils in this stage, and the pupils go through the comic. The teacher acts as the facilitator, and at the end of each set, they will do a mini activity among themselves. And then in the practice stage, the pupils will play the combo board game among themselves. They will choose their own pawn, and then they will the teacher will explain the rules of the game, and they will given 30 minutes to play among themselves. And for the post-intervention, the teacher distributed the post-intervention worksheets, and they have to complete it in 15 minutes, sorry. Now, this is the data collection method. I have organized it in a sequence that I have used in the research. The first one is the pre-test worksheet. And then we go to the field notes. This is for the observation. I have observed the pupils' attitude and reaction towards the intervention. And then we go to the post-test worksheet. The field notes were administered to the observer during 2 stages, during the presentation stage as well as the practice stage. And then after the intervention, the pupils were given the post-test worksheet. And then after that, the pupils were given a student feedback form to know their opinions on the intervention. And lastly, the researcher conducted a semi-structured interview with the pupils individually after all of these are done. Next is the data analysis method. I have concluded my data analysis method in 2 themes that is evident, which is understanding and interest. So here we have in people's worksheet, we have understanding, the theme of understanding. In observation, we have both in observation, people's feedback form, and semi-structured interview, we have both in the theme of understanding and interest. So I have analyzed this theme from my data collection, and then I have gathered this into 2 important themes for my research. Next is my research findings. Considering that my research objective is to improve Year 5 Zambrut pupils' use of subject-verb agreement in simple present sentences through combo kit, so it can be seen in the pupils' improvement of their scores in their worksheets. So as you can see, the pre-intervention worksheet, the post-intervention worksheet in cycle 1, and then post-intervention in cycle 2, there has a positive and gradual improvement in the student scores, and this shows that the pupils understand the use of subject-verb agreement in simple present sentences. And then for the research question, which is how does the combo kit help to improve the Year 5 Zambrut pupils' use of subject-verb agreement effectively? So I have used the data triangulation, considering that I have 3 methods, which is document analysis, interview, and observation. And based on the data triangulation, I can conclude that all participants showed interest and understanding at the end of cycle 2. So this shows the effectiveness of the study by the integration of interactive and fun learning methods through the use of games and comics. Lastly, for the conclusion, so based on my findings, I have reflected that the combo kit has helped to improve the pupils' use of subject-verb agreement, and the pupils have enjoyed the intervention as well. And then the integration of fun learning methods in teaching English is essential to ensure the effectiveness of the learning because we want the students to learn in a safe and non-threatening environment with fun-filled activities. The next is for my recommendation, in which I recommend that this intervention can be used and can be adapted to many topics for grammar. For example, simple past, simple perfect, and many other tenses. Other researchers can also use it for other grammar items, and it can be adapted according to the researcher's creativity. And lastly, what I recommend for the other researchers is that the combo board game can be adapted, in which they can use different level of difficulties in the questions. We have Bloom's taxonomy. We can use the HOTS in the questions, and then we can also use different tasks such as task-based activity to the pupils so that they can show or showcase their understanding of the subject of agreement. I think that's all for my presentation. I open for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. The ceremony will now continue with the question and answer session. Please welcome Madam Sana and Mr. Shams to ask any questions to the presenters.
Congratulations, Sana, that you have come to the stage with it. You have completed your research. Okay, first of all, I'm still trying to understand whether this combo kit is in digital form or is it physical in its appearance?
Okay, in appearance, this combo kit is in a digital form, but I have conducted the intervention in a physical classroom, considering that my pupils have difficulties with their gadgets. So I need to wait for the school to be reopened, and since they have this rotation schedule, so I need to wait for the pupils to have their classes and meet them and do the intervention with them. However, this intervention can also be used online, doing online classes as well. So, yeah.
What makes you consider of having both?
Considering that in learning we have presentation stage, we have practice stage and production stage. So I did my intervention to reflect those stages in my intervention. So that's why I use the combo comic to expose the people to the rules, to make sure that they know how to use the subjects of agreement. And then in the practice stage, they can have fun with their friends and play the game among themselves and check whether they understand the subject of agreement or not.
Did you share this with your mentor teacher?
Yes, I did share it with her, so she can use it for any other activities as well.
I was thinking of an access to any kind of thing in classroom. What's her reaction to this kind of material?
Considering that she's a veteran teacher, so she was skeptical about my method at first because she thinks that learning should be serious. Learning should be something that you need to be serious about it. There needs to be a formal setting about it. But when I tried to do games with my students in my classroom, and when she entered my Google Meet session with my students, she find that the games have helped my pupils to understand English better in a fun-filled environment in which they can have fun and learn at the same time. And my pupils really enjoyed it so much that from lacking of interest, they have become more interested in learning, and they kept texting me whether they can have more games or not. So this is, I think, very influential in terms of my intervention.
One last question of you. If I'm not mistaken, you did not mention about the criteria of selection of your participants.
For my participants, I have mentioned that I've chosen them according to their diagnostic worksheet. They have the lowest marks among their friends, where they achieved 2 over 15 marks in the diagnostic worksheet that I have written for simple present sentences, and it showed that they lack of understanding for the subject of the agreement.
Thank you. Now, please welcome the last presenter, Nur Sabrina binti Muhammad Ghazali from Tajuk 3 to present her presentation. Please welcome.
Okay, Assalamualaikum to our panel evaluators, Ms. Sana and Ms. Okay, so my name is Nur Sabrina binti Muhammad Ghazali. So today I am going to present the overview of my thesis on the factors affecting speaking fluency in English among PISMP testers teacher training in ITT Kedah. Alright, so moving on to the first element of my study, which is the background of the study. As we all know, English is known as the language of international communication or lingua franca all over the world, especially in the higher educational system. So most universities and colleges in Malaysia are using English as their medium of instruction and communication. You can see in their curriculum, syllabus, or the language they use in the classroom. And this scenario can also be seen in the IPG, where we use in the TESOL course, where we use English as our main instruction. Okay, so speaking in English helps teacher trainees in preparing themselves with proficiency to learn the courses and to increase the chances for any job prospect. Alright, so the chances to get employed will be higher if the applicant has the skills to communicate and converse in English fluently. Alright, however, the level of fluency among PISMP testers teacher trainees are still low. Okay, so I can see this because this can be seen when the teacher trainees hesitant in speaking, causing them failing in delivering the messages or concepts they want to portray. So this is the reason why I try to conduct this study, to know the factors affecting speaking fluency among teacher trainees. Alright, so moving on to the problem statement. So the main problem in this study that I want to study is the low proficiency of English language in terms of fluency among teacher trainees in the higher education system. So Palpanadan and Ismail 2014 stated that Malaysian students were unable to attain acceptable English fluency even though they went through 11 years of learning the English language. So Malaysian students, they have been learning English language since they are in primary school. So they have been extensively learned the language, but they're still unable to attain the acceptable English fluency. And this is supported by Hazina Aziz in 2018, stated that Malaysia's ranking in the English Proficiency Index survey was falling 9 spots from 13 to the 22nd place. Right. So as a TESOL teacher trainees, we are expected to be competent in communicating in English for our future career as English teachers. So when they are unable to identify the factors affecting their speaking fluency, so they cannot figure out how to solve the problem and improve their speaking ability. So this will result them to feel demotivated and lose interest to enhance their speaking fluency. Alright, so the purpose of the study, I want to investigate the factors affecting speaking fluency in English among PISMP testers trainees in IPG KDI, and I want to fill the gap of previous researchers by using questionnaire in the survey form. For my research objective, there are two research objectives. Okay, for the first one is to find out the main factor that affects the speaking fluency in English language among PISMP testers teacher trainees in IPG KDI. And number two, I want to identify the difference in the level of speaking fluency in English between male and female PISMP testers teacher trainees. Meanwhile, for my research question, number one is, what is the main factor that affects speaking fluency in the English language among PISMP testers teacher trainees in IPG KDI? And number 2, is there any difference in the level of English speaking fluency of PISMP testers, teacher trainees based on their gender? Okay, for the significance of the study, these are some of the parties that will benefit from this study. The first one is the Ministry of Education. So for the Ministry of Education, they can design a curriculum that provides the opportunities for teacher trainees in improving their speaking fluency. So when they provide the opportunities, teacher trainees can improve their teaching quality in the Institute of Teaching Education Malaysia. Hence, we can produce a better quality of teacher which has high speaking fluency in English. Meanwhile, for teacher trainees, it can help teacher trainees in identifying factors that affect their speaking fluency in English, and they can use this study as a guideline for them to further improve their speaking fluency in English. Meanwhile, for English school teacher, so this study also can help teacher trainees help English school teacher in identify factors affecting their speaking fluency in English. And if they are able to identify, then they can deliver the lesson without unnecessary pause and disruption in the classroom. Alright, so the past research that I refer for my study, these are some of the past research. The first one is Science Kasari, and Ghani in 2016. So the result of the study emphasized that by encouraging the students to participate in the verbal interaction in the classroom was the best way to effectively enhance the student speaking skills. So this study is conducted in University of Malaysia in 2016. Meanwhile, for Tagilo in 2019, so in his study, he highlighted on the importance of having a healthy relationship between teacher to learner and learner to learner to create a pleasant and conducive learning environment which will help learners to interact and communicate easily with each other. As we all know, when you provide a learning environment that is safe and conducive for the learners, they can speak in English confidently and fluently, right? For my research design, I use quantitative research method with a survey design with a questionnaire as the instrument was chosen for this research. Since this study was conducted during COVID-19 outbreak, so I decided to conduct the survey via online platform, which is Google Forms, to ensure the safety of the respondents from the virus. For my research instrument, I use questionnaire in terms of Google Forms. So the questionnaire was adapted from a research made by Azizi Yahya, Nordin Yahya, Hui Chuli, Abdul Talib Bon, and Sharifuddin Ismail in 2011. So there are 6 variables. Number 1 is parental influence. Number 2, peer influence. Number 3 is actually lecturer influence by high school. Number 4 is personal attitude towards English. Number 5 is teacher trainees' perception towards English. And number 6 is level of speaking fluency. And for this questionnaire, I use Likert scale question, which use 5-point scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. For my respondent, the population is 249 PISMP testers, teacher trainees from the first year until the 4th year, and it is consists of mixed ability group. And the sample, I use Craigie and Morgan sample size formula. So from the table, 152 teacher trainees are chosen as the respondent for this study. All right, moving on to the research procedure. So the first one is selection of topics. So I select what is the thing I want to study, and then I do the clarification of research objective and research question with my supervisor, and I review the literature, and I select the research design that I want to use, and then I do the data collection and analyze the data, and after that I draw the conclusion based on the findings of the data. And then the data collection procedure. So first, I obtain approval of research from my supervisor. Then I discuss with my supervisor on how to conduct the research and how to conduct the questionnaire. Then I obtain her approval of the item in the questionnaire from the supervisor. And then I conduct my pilot study via Google Forms. And I conduct actual research by Google Forms involving 152 PISMP testers, teacher trainees in ICT Selari. Next, for data analysis procedure, so there are 2 ways. First is descriptive analysis, which I calculate the highest mean to identify the main factor. And number 2 is inferential, where I analyze the difference between the 2 variables, which is the gender, female and male, using t-test in the SPSS. Okay, moving on to the findings. So the first finding is to answer the research question number 1. What is the main factor that affects speaking fluency in English language among PISMP testers, teacher trainees in a PG career I? As you can see, the highest mean is 4.45, which is lecturer influence, followed by teacher trainees perception towards English, and then peer influence, personal attitude towards English, and lastly, parental influence. Okay, so these are the 5 factors. Meanwhile, for the level of speaking fluency, teacher trainees in PG career I is 3.80. Okay. And the research question number 2, is there any difference in the level of speaking fluency in PISMP testers, teacher trainees based on their gender? So let's see in the significant value of relevant test for equality of variance. Okay, as you can see here, it is 0.005, which is P less than 0.05. So me as a researcher, I need to look at the significant total in the equal variance, not assume, which is 0.00. So the value P is less than 0.005, shows that there is a significant difference between two variables, which is gender. Okay, so before that, I want to show the mean for male and female level of speaking fluency in English. As you can see, male level of speaking fluency is 3.71 and female is 4.09, which shows that female teacher trainees are more fluent in speaking than male teacher trainees. Okay, so the discussion based on the finding. So number 1 is lecturer influence is the main factor affecting teacher trainees speaking fluency in English. As I mentioned before, mean for lecturer influence is 4.45 and it is considered as high level. This is because teacher trainees spend most of their time in the classroom, joining the lectures, and the lectures are delivered in English since the course is TESOL, majoring in TESOL. So they're influenced by that, and they also consult lecturers for assignment purposes, for the tutorial and task and discussion. Okay, and based on the findings, 86.2% of the respondents agreed that the lecturer helped to guide them in learning by correcting their mistake while they speak English. So this constant interaction between the teacher trainees and lecturers help to improve teacher trainees speaking fluency in English. Meanwhile, the discussion number 2, female teacher trainees are more fluent in speaking English than male teacher trainees. So mean for female teacher trainees is 4.1. Meanwhile, for male teacher trainees is 3.72. Okay, so this result is consistent with Younger, Warrington, Gray, and Ruddock 2005 findings, which show that girls often outperform boys in terms of their linguistic ability. Meanwhile, the special ability is dominated by the boys. And another study conducted by Nira, Shamsul, and Nurul in 2019 found that female students achieved a higher score than male students, with female students scoring 47.5 on average over 43.1 for male students. Okay, for the conclusion, from this study, it reflects that the fluency in speaking English will be the highest when the teacher trainees have the most interaction with their lecturers, and there is also a significant difference between female and male teacher trainees in terms of their level of fluency. Alright, so